Going live. Let's make sure the audio works. 1, 2, 3. Just kidding. Or is my audio working? What the heck? What the heck? What's wrong with it? Going live. Wow, that was really loud. Let's make sure the audio works. 1, 2, 3. All right, cool. We can hear everything, me and the desktop. Bye. Shout out to Andre 3000. Shout out to Outcast. Shout out to Krezam. These guys are hilarious. Information technology comedy. They're also the reason that this live stream is like an hour late because I was just watching their videos. So this is part 4. We are in the statistical analysis mode. We're wrapping up the basic exploration and focusing on, in this video, ordinary least squares, actually starting to write the paper, possibly preparing the table of regressions. We'll see if we get to that. This is part 4. Part 1 was focused on data wrangling. 2, also data wrangling. 3 was focused on this basic exploration. That is about half water, half orange juice. You got to stay hydrated. So what we did is we wrote out, and by we I mean me, what I did is I basically started my tech file. I don't even think I committed it, but I started it following the general form of a prior paper of mine that had been submitted, which this paper is building on. So previously I talked about preliminary attitudinal trends, and in that preliminary paper I had a basically footnote hypothesis, but it was foreshadowing future research possibility, where I said, hey, some people are reacting strangely. And basically here in the text, I think I have the excerpt. Status quo bias among conservatives is common. So the status quo bias is similar to like anti-innovation bias. So the question is like, why are these conservatives chill with alternative education, but they're opposed to technology? Something like that. That's probably a poor wording of the problem. And then we have liberals who, a liberal or a progressive, like logically, if you know, logically, they would be in favor of regulation. Like that's what progressivism and liberalism is. It's not. This is not slander or anything. This is technical stuff, right? So those on the political left would be in favor of government oversight of education system. So this is the traditional education system with accredited higher education, and that's in contrast to alternative post-secondary education. What am I talking about here? Udacity nano degree, right? This is unaccredited, but it's an alternative credential. So there still is a credential. I can put it on my resume. I can put it on LinkedIn. I can talk about it during an interview. Some people know what it is, some don't. That's part of the problem, is there's a knowledge problem with alternative credentials. But every day they're becoming like more and more well known, and especially like for programming, people know what this is, right? School of Business, that's newish. So if you're like, hey, I have a Udacity nano degree in business analysis or product management, that could be kind of hit or miss. And there's also like a diminished relative value because the business degree, an accredited business degree, is super cheap and easy to get. Right? So why not just get one of those? Computer science degree is kind of hard to get. So you can see that the relative difficulty, and that's a cost, so the relative cost would be higher for computer science, which makes alternative credentials potentially a good fit. And it's a little bit less weird than, so substituting a really difficult computer science degree for a relatively easy and affordable, etc. alternative credential. I'm not sure that argument is totally well thought out, but yeah, relative difficulty can contribute to value. Okay, let's get off of the rabbit trail. So that's an example of an alternative credential as Udacity Nano degree, and I actually call that one out in SurveyMonkey. And familiarity with what they even are is part of the problem. One of my survey questions is like, have you even heard of Udacity, Udemy, Course? I don't know if I ask about Coursera. Lynda, which used to be called Lynda, it's also called LinkedIn Learning now. So these are some of my questions I ask. And so I'm not just like saying this like in general, like my specific plural site, that's a big one. I do ask about Coursera, dope. Some that I don't ask about, but they're like pretty well known these days, like MIT OpenCourseWare. It's skipping my mind if you actually get a credential from them. That's why I didn't originally ask about it, because originally you didn't even get a credential from them, although you could take their courses. I think now you get like some kind of certificate of completion, and I think you might even be able to pay to get like to actually do a test. So validated learning is a big deal, right? It's not just like I watched some YouTube videos, even though I do that every day, but it's like I validated the learning with an institution. Even though they're not accredited, they're still testing me. So it becomes like a professional certification. And professional certifications fall in this bucket too. So something like PMP certification. This is an alternative credential. Now PMP certification and a lot of these professional certifications actually require or encourage you to have a college degree. I'm actually not sure it requires it. I think it just like you get to have less experience or something like that. Okay, a 4-year degree or, right, 3 years leading projects or 5 years leading projects. But you can see how it still encourages it, and it affects the relative cost. So basically, if my target is to get PMP, I have a higher incentive to go ahead and get an accredited degree because some of that value will be reused. And it basically increases the value to me, the personal value to me, not the social value, but the individual value to me of an accredited college degree, because it lets me get that PMP sooner. And so then that PMP is going to raise my salary. So some of that downstream PMP value is attributable or accelerated by getting the traditional degree. But I can still do the 5 years if I want to go that way. It's also harder to get your foot in the door because they want you to have experience. But how are you going to get your foot in the door without a college degree? So that's where my research is really focused. My variable of interest, I think I might have said this in passing, but to make it very clear, for many, and I actually did say this in just the last video I said this. The wording of my variable of interest. For many professions, alternative credentials can qualify a person for an entry-level position. I specifically care about getting your foot in the door. Because once you get your foot in the door, other stuff like this kind of takes it from there. And as a programmer, so some of this motivation is because I'm a self-taught programmer. Getting that first job was a little bit harder. Actually, it was easier than I expected to be honest with you. But it was definitely harder to get the first job than it was to get the second, third, fourth job. Because once you have industry experience, at least a year, maybe preferably 2 years, like once you have 1 or 2 years of industry experience, people don't really even care about your degree. For many roles. And there are industry effects, and I measure them, and they do matter. A lot of cases, like where's that question? So you can actually see the industries. Has to do with regulation a lot. Basically, I'm asking white people. Industry. Transportation. Yeah, that was one of the industries. Which of the industries? Okay. Even though very few people said transportation, but it actually had like an important effect. So, and then also medical and law. And it's like, why? And the answer is, it has to do with regulation. Like for law, you literally need a degree Okay, again, stuff is complicated. So there are some edge cases. You can pass the bar in, I think, DC without a 4-year degree, but it has like a 50% pass rate or something. But you can actually self-study and pass the bar in DC. But for almost every other state, at the state level, to take the bar, to sit for the bar exam, and become a lawyer or attorney, I always get those mixed up, but like to get your JD, geez, I'm really mixing this up, to be official. Sit for the bar, pass it, and be official. You have to have a college degree in many states. I think most states. I think all but like 2 or 3 states. And same for medical. To be like a medical doctor, you got to get a degree. You can be a nurse. And some of those alternative career paths are an interest of my research. I would say, maybe not specifically for medical doctor, but in a lot of cases, get your foot in the door with a entry-level position. A nurse would be an entry-level position. Then you can leverage your employee benefit to pay for additional years of schooling. You could potentially even go to school free to become a doctor if you play your cards right, which, if anyone knows how expensive it is to become a doctor, it's insane. You don't want to pay for that out of pocket. You'll take on so much debt. Get someone else to pay for it. Increase your return on investment. Now you can see how it relates to economics, right? As soon as I said return on investment. Okay, it's all clicking. Back to the statistics. So what we discovered is we discovered the share of ideological effect, and it was kind of low, like 15% or a bit less. Admittedly, I am missing. Wait, did I actually have data on this? I think it told me 0 samples. It told me 0 samples for something. Right, to do the multiple regression with personality. So unfortunately, I cannot do a multiple regression with the data set that I have. Cannot do a multiple regression of personality and ideology at the same time for all ideology variables. I do have a couple, but not all of them. But I can do all the ideology variables in isolation because it's a panel and there were different questions. So like, I think it was like last year, I got all these ideology variables, but I wasn't asking about personality at the time. But now I asked about personality, boneheaded me. I didn't also ask about ideology. Maybe after I send this paper, or like before I submit this paper, I might go grab some more samples for Mechanical Turk and get that information too. I might even do a video for it. So tune in, maybe. Not my best pitch. Okay, so now I also wanted to check the explanatory power of personality, which we did not generate the variables yet. So we discovered that we need nonlinear effects. Right here you can see. Well, actually right here you cannot see, so that's interesting. Right here it looks like the linear effect is most important. But these two guys proved that nonlinear effects are important. So right here you can see that the marginal effect is more significant than the linear effect. Not only is it more significant, it's also a structurally important relation. So we have an attenuating relation. Attenuating means that the marginal effect is in the direction opposite of the linear effect, and this is very common. You'll often see it with like decreasing marginal return, like a STATA condition. Where's the STATA curve? Show me the curve, baby. Yeah, this guy. Solo model. So this is satisfy STATA condition. Solo model is like economics 101 or 201. Really great macro model. I mean, really great. Geez, like as far as super basic old models go, really great for learning it. It's not like you'd really use this today, but it's a really great discussion anchor that like good economists should know what the Solo model is. So anyway, this is an STATA condition. It's decreasing marginal return, but it never necessarily goes back down. It just kind of flattens out and then just stays on a plateau. That's a NATA condition. And that's very common when you're investing in something. You can invest more and more, and then, like, say you're buying machines to like make stuff. And it'll make more and more, but it makes a little bit less per dollar. This is very common. Like paying people, like paying me. Like, you can pay me more and more money to work, but I'm going to be getting tired, and I'm going to like stop working. And you can be like, but I'll pay you more money. Won't you keep working and not sleep for days on end? And it's like, at a certain point, I'm just going to plateau, and you can give me $1 billion, and it's like, bro, I need to sleep. You see what I mean? What we see in this regression is actually a reverse ANATA condition. So instead of increasing less and less, it's decreasing less and less. So it's like a U shape, but not the whole U, just to the bottom, and then plateauing at 0. It's a reverse ANATA. Okay. You could say it's approaching nada. Oh, jeez. Yes, economics joke. I found one. I found an original. That was an original, just so you know. So this shows that marginal effect, more important than linear effect, at least in this specification, maybe not across the board, but what it means is that we can't rule it out based on basic exploration. So according to basic exploration, we need these. So let's go make them. So I only made personality open, but we need all 5 of the ocean. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. What about grit? Let's do grit. Okay, so we're doing ocean plus grit is our personality stuffs. Open, 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 open. 1, 2, 3. So this will be, I don't even notice. Whoa, love predictive text. I never would have been able to spell that on my own. Okay, so conscientiousness. So this will be conscientiousness 1. And then we will drop conscientiousness. And we do that because the suffix is ambiguous. And it can freak Stata out. Really, this should be dropped up here. So then you're like, with the 1, 2, 3, you're like really explicit, and that's linear, cubic, quadratic, cubic, where the quadratic is representing the marginal effect. And cubics are weird because they're kind of tricky to interpret. They're basically also marginal effects. You could say they're marginal effects of marginal effects, but then it gets really complicated because you might have statistics like the linear drops out and you only have the second and the cubic, and then it's like, is this even a marginal effect, or what is it? Yeah, I think that's the best interpretation. I just don't like probably what's going to happen here is like some of these personality traits, the cubic will be significant and others it won't. And it makes interpretation really hard because you're like, does the marginal matter? It's like sometimes, and that's not a thing that's easy to communicate and tell people. And you also don't know if it's true, or it's like, is this my sampling error, right? Is this, because it could be a weak effect. Anyway. Openness, conscientiousness. Agree. Oh, let's finish that. 2, 3. Okay, and this is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Now we have conscientiousness. Agreeableness. Okay. I totally skipped extroversion, my bad. OCE. Make sure I got these right. Openness we know is good. Conscientiousness looks good. Extroversion looks good. Agree. Let's not be lazy and keep it consistent. Neuroticism. Boom. Predictive text. This thing called tab 9. So it's not just VS Code IntelliSense predictive text. I have this artificially intelligent extension called tab 9. That one up there at the top. And that thing is amazing. It literally just learns how I type, and then it can detect patterns regardless of language. It's not language specific. It just looks at how I type. Thing is crazy. Okay, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. And then I do have another personality variable, but it's a Boolean, so I'm not going to take its powers. But it is invalid personality. Basically, if they filled out the personality fields incorrectly. Personality grid 1. And so it's like, why would that be anything? It could be a proxy of intelligence. That's what I'm going with. And if you saw in the last video, it's actually really significant. So I'm keeping it for now. OCEAN, grit. 1, 2, 3. I think that's it. I think that's everything I wanted. Okay. Now let's rerun this. This will rerun the analysis1 do file, which is the variable generation, which includes a clear at the top. Oh, you see that clear? So it will wipe memory, import the data fresh, regenerate all the variables, including the new variables that I just now generated. Okay? And then it will run a bunch of regressions. And this is actually the one. I actually don't need to run all these regressions. I'll just do this. It's already defined. Okay. Bush League, man. Bush League. Okay. So we'll do that again. Cool. No errors. So now let's clear this out. Bam. So now I got all the personalities. Whew. So I think we're trying to beat like 15% or so. So that we can say that we are more important than ideological effects, which would be interesting. Honestly, if it was less, that would be interesting too. Yeah, it's less. So r squared is 8. A bunch of these are super weak. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the adjusted is actually negative, so that is bad. I mean, it's not bad that the adjusted is negative, but it means that you wouldn't want to build a model with these factors. It kind of is a finding. I made it due to collinearity. That's fine. So it kind of is a finding that personality matters so little. Okay, cool. So this is 0886. with quadratics and cubics, r squared is, what is it, 0.88. And this is really weird to me, 0.886, and then the adjusted r's AR2. I'll make sure I got no comments or anything so far. Oh. Okay. 0.886 and then negative 0.0016. And this is super weird to me because confounds. Because when we just checked invalid by itself, it was higher. Personality grit ambiguous. Okay, now it's ambiguous. That'd be grit 1. I wonder if I did that in other places. No. Personality grit. Yeah, I'll need to update these all to include the 1. This is linear checks. So it's definitely confounding. Personality less grit reduces. Personality less grit reduces r squared total. Personality less grit reduces r squared total and adjusted. So we keep it. Also, linear openness is weaker than marginal openness, so we need marginal personality effects. Let me double check that that's not the case that cubics are also needed. So we have with cubic openness, with marginal openness, and one with linear openness. Okay, and then where's the grid? Okay, and then we remove the grid. Okay, so testing this reduction. By the way, that's a 1. Let's make sure I can run all of these without error. Yeah, okay, so that needs to be updated. Also, agreeableness. Yep. Ooh. Well, that was dumb. I don't have the variable of interest. I just was running a regression of agreeableness. That was super dumb. Non-completion is positively associated with grit. Yeah, that was interesting. Okay, so let's do this again. This is kind of like a replication. So what we do first is we see that I'm bad. Invalid. Cool. Right, let's try it again. Okay. This r squared is like 0, basically. 3%, it's like nothing. Okay, so linear is the most important here. Linear, marginal, cubic. That's the normal case, right? Is like the linear effect is kind of the central effect. And others are secondary and tertiary, respectively. So that is the case if I include the cubic. So then I drop the cubic because I'm like, okay, I don't need a cubic. Drop the cubic and my adjusted r squared goes down. So, and my r squared goes down. So it's kind of a sign that I want to keep the cubic. But it's not that much anyway. It goes down from like 0 to 0. It goes down from 0.33 to 0.26. Ooh, debatable. Here's what's a lot less debatable. Previously, we're assuming we need the linear effect because we need some proxy. The first order proxy literally is the linear effect. That's the thing you go for, and then the others are kind of like, let me check this. Now, the marginal effect is actually more important than the linear effect from p-value perspective. And the signs, no, the signs are consistent. Okay, so that's a good sign. So let's keep them. This allows us to be a little more confident in the linear and the marginal compared to the cubic, because we can say that across specification the signs were the same. So that's a robustness check, which we can't really do for the. I mean, there's ways to do that, but that's one reason that we're more confident in this. Second reason we're more confident in this, because the significance of the marginal effect is more than the linear effect, and we're keeping the linear effect for sure. So then it would be illogical to remove the marginal effect. So anyway, too long, didn't read. Cubic's optional. We need marginal personality effect. Cubic's optional. Okay. Drop the cubic. We're going to see r squared and adjusting r squared go down. Neuroticism is ambiguous. R squared is 2.2 versus 2.6. Adjusted R squared increased. Yeah, that's right. But we're going to keep it, because if we're keeping the linear effect, we're for sure keeping the marginal. We already talked about that. Okay, so R squared went down as expected. Now what if I drop grit? If I drop grit 1.5 versus 2.2, R squared and adjusted R squared both go down, so I should keep grit. Cool. All right, so these demonstrate that we need marginal effects, but not really cubic effects. Now back here, with quadratics and cubics, the adjusted R squared is negative. So let's drop the cubics. So we will do personality 1, personality 2. Agree. Why is agree there like that? Agree. Something bad happened. Agreeableness. Agreeableness 3. Agree. OCEA. Okay, so they're still there. They're just named differently. That's fine. OCEA and plus grit. Plus this guy. So now I have a positive adjusted R squared. So we like this model more. So we're not even gonna investigate the cubics. Plus, it simplifies our ability to explain results and everything anyway. It was like 1%. Yeah, 0.0105. So it's basically nothing. It's basically nothing. But we're going to keep going. And why do we even keep going is because this guy alone O22, O6. Okay, so this is not inconsistent. All right, so previously I thought there was an inconsistent result, but I think it's just because I forgot to type VOI, so I was regressing on something else. So it looks like the upper bound of what we're going to explain is maybe like 7%. And it could be even less once you partial out ideology from personality. So So it looks like our result might be personality doesn't matter that much, but we'll wait and see. At least extroversion. Why is this only one? Oh, it's just the way it's sorted. Yeah, it looks like extroversion matters. That's really weird, right? I thought openness would matter more for whether you're open to alternative credentials, right? Extroversion. And extroversion is pretty strongly positive. We'll see if that sign flips. I'm just making a note. It's kind of weird. Because you would think online learning, which is basically alternative education, you would think the extroverts would be like, oh no. Okay, so let's, so we're basically done with basic exploration. We tested ideology. So ideology explains about 15%, and then this was like 6 or 7. 0.69. Zero. 0.69. Yep. So it looks like ideology is about twice as important as personality at very, 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 very crude comparison. And that's before testing. Yeah. Actually, that's with all the ideology variables that I care about. But it is. It's not corrected for personality, so there could be some interaction, and that's what we don't know. So we'll just assume, that's part of our methodology, right? We need to assume no interaction, which is actually a pretty dubious assumption. Personality and ideology. Is it? We assume independence of personality and ideology, along with stability of both over time. These assumptions are necessary because multiple regression of both sets of effects cannot be accomplished with the present data set. Is that dubious? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? And I think I should go take some more samples to address that potential vulnerability of this paper for another time. These use keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. I guess I have some occasional lag or something going on. That's no good. Cool. So the other exploratory questions before we dive into the kind of the systematic exploration. Do time effects dominate personality? And it looks like the answer is going to be yes, because personality effects aren't very strong. So the way that we do this is we do this plus time. And not only are personality effects not very strong, I also don't have, I think I have like 2 samples. Or like not much more than 2 samples of administrations with personality questions. So, and what is my time? I think it's C time. Yeah, C time. We do C time. even time effects were weak, but they so time stronger than some of these guys. 498, so it's weak, but it's not super weak in the sense that the cutoff would be 0.5, where you're equally likely to exist and not exist. Actually, from my other study, time effects, I'm pretty sure they exist, but the temporal sampling here is so low. Like there's so little variation in time. So should we leave it in? I mean, does it enhance our adjusted R squared? 0024, 01. So it actually reduces adjusted R squared, even though, so the result is, answer, and this is C time. Let's also do the completion thing, which was kind of interesting. Is it just completion? Yep. We're treating this as an intelligence proxy currently. Here, let me make the nonlinears. Drop completion. Completion 1, 2, 3. All right, so completion is also a time effect. And is there any other time effects? Because completion is derived from time. Ouch. Oh, collectors were another thing that we cared about. So we'll just do time. Like the purest time effect would be just C time. And you know what? Let's see if yeah. So the purest linear effect is arguably just linear time, but it's actually less significant than including the nonlinear effect as well. Answer: linear time doesn't matter. Linear plus nonlinear time is stronger than some personality effects, but weak. P less than 0.5. Now, what about with completion and collector? Completion and collector. Collector is not found, but it needs to be. Collector. What did I do? I think I tab-end it. Is collector. Yep. So all my booleans, I usually prefix them with is. There's only, I guess, 2 collectors. Yeah, so there were only like 2 collectors, so only 1 collector change was non-omitted. And it reduces R squared even more. And my previous study, I found that collector effects don't matter. So this, it's like, which is plausible. Like 1 collector might have something like this, but I think once we get into the standard controls, that's going to blow up and be partialed out, and it won't matter. Yeah. Okay, so what we found here is that C time is even weaker after we include completion time in collectors. Okay, completion time. It's pretty weak, but it's still curious. Completion time. Why is that linear? Oh yeah, I didn't get the. I need to redo my do file so I can get the nonlinears for it. Let's see if it, completion ambiguous abbreviation. I was trying not to be ambiguous though. Completion. Why did it not do this with the other guys? I'm going to try to drop paralysis and it doesn't complain. Completion. Alright, so let's do all this stuff. So we're going to clear it. Cool. So it didn't complain for like grit and everything. Okay. Oh yeah, no, that makes sense that there are so few missing values. And completion time could be totally its own study if it's significant. We'll see, because that's a lot of samples. Okay, let me drop you, dog. Are you bitching about it, dude? You did not bitch about it for anyone else, man. Completion. Okay, I know why. Because for the other people, I wrote the whole thing out. I'm such an asshole. Okay, and that is why sometimes spelling out is a good practice. Not to mention, in some stuff like in the vector autoregressions, Stata won't even recognize what you're talking about randomly for certain functions unless you spell the whole thing out. So it's typically a good practice to spell the whole thing out, because you're going to be like, why does Stata not get it? Well, Stata gets everything else in this one function, and it's because you didn't type it all the way out. That happened to me in my vector autoregression study, section 127, employer assistance study. Okay, so now you're going to complain because you already exist. Yeah, okay, fine. Completion, whatever. But now, I think you might work. 60% confident. Ugh. Completion time. I still didn't spell it all the way out, did I? It's like completion time in minutes. Completion time minutes. Thank you. Okay, so that worked. So completion time minutes. STATA problems, dog. Very cool. So let's do it again. Completion time and video abbreviation. Okay. Completion time in minutes. Done. It worked. No errors. Okay. Now we have nonlinear completion time. And it bumps us up to 8. Hey, but that's not 8 about personality, because completion time is, and look how weak this is. Okay, that's interesting though, because instead of getting weaker as the powers increase, it actually gets stronger as the powers increase. I'm going to do something I basically never do, and I'm going to look at a quad power. I basically never do this because theoretically it's reducible to a power of 2. It's like, why would you do that? And literally my only reason is because that p-value is getting better and better. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now that got rid of the weirdness I was seeing. So now linear is high, marginal is less significant, but then it gets more and more. But at least the idea that it's like, but even the 4 is less significant than the linear. So the effect is well represented at this point. Okay. It seems like completion time doesn't matter. That's what it seems like. And that could be due to sampling effects. There's only, if it's a subtle effect and there's only 200 observations, we won't catch it. Why did I do that? It's just a really weak effect. Basically doesn't, it does, it's not really an intelligence proxy. Or intelligence is not very strongly correlated to approval. Could be the other thing. These coefficients are fairly small. Linear kind of matters. Okay, so let's double check with only the linear effect and group that. See, it groups the explanatory power back into the single factor representation now. So the p-value is better. Let's do the same. And when we did that with time, time blew up. So you could argue time is officially out. But question, is completion time officially out? Drop time and completion time gets a little better. I think the only way we can justify keeping it is saying, hey, it's better than some personality traits yet again, but we said that for time and we threw time out. So I think we might need to throw completion time out. These are 8, 5. I mean, you could say completion time beat them out even more. Let's see time. Let's keep it. Wait, no, let's not keep it because we already said that even if we use the full sample, completion time 1. Even if you use the full sample, the R squared is like nothing. Completion time minutes VOI. Yeah, so we're not going to use it. Even if we assume the effect's there, it's a negligible effect. Even if we assume the effect is there, it's a negligible effect. It would not be appropriate to think about intelligence in a linear way. Okay, that more than doubles R squared. And not a condition. As expected, significant factor. It's kind of there, it's just really negligible. Okay, that's going to be my final result, and then I don't care. I don't care about adding 002. Sorry. Honestly, it would take up too much of my paper to even explain like what I checked, and that at the end of the day, it's such a small result. Who cares? Completion time was hypothesized as an intelligence proxy. The effect may exist, but it's super negligible with respect to approval. Perhaps the completion time intelligence proxy is weak, and or perhaps intelligence doesn't relate strongly with approval. Both plausible. Cool. So that is buttoned up, so we will not be further exploring completion time. Or time for that matter. So answer linear plus nonlinear effect. Linear plus nonlinear time is stronger than some personality effects but weak. So overall, time effects are not interesting. Potentially due to sample variation constraint. You have samples at different times. Small time sample variation. I don't know how to say that well, sorry. Okay. And I'm over it. So the basic exploration is done. How does this relate to hiring and firing or industry growth trends? Well, managers tend to have certain personality traits. Personality answer. Do they also tend a certain ideology? Okay. Industry growth isn't really effective because personality is taken as socially stable. Yeah, like the personality of all of society. We don't see that really changing over time, at At least not in my study, we're not going to. Even if, so it'd be weird if that happened, but even if that happened, my survey would not capture it. Industry growth isn't really affected, right? That's really the whole answer. Industry growth isn't really affected because personality is taken as socially stable. This info could be relevant for product marketing. Some personalities being more friendly to alt education. However, preliminary analysis indicates these effects are small. Okay. Bam. That doesn't even belong here. It belongs in the paper. Really should not even be a comment. We can clean up the language, of course, but this is like actual result content. Okay, so this is, I'll do a git commit here. So what we do is we did the basic exploration, we created personality variables, and we did an initial commit of this tech file. With respect to the wrangling, we also made grit a number instead of a float or something with a fraction in it, because that freaks data out. Okay, so we'll stage those. Git commit and tech file initial commit. Complete basic exploration. Grit shouldn't have a decimal in it. That's basically it, right? Oh, and define nonlinear personality variables. Cool, good team. All right, so let's do the ordinary least squares with the social controls. Okay. So the do, we will still do the analysis.vars. And do we want an instrumental variable? Not really. I don't know why I would want an instrument. Can't really think of what I would want to do that for. Just ordinary regression. So the way that we are testing this is we want to multiple regression as much of the ideology as possible, even though we know we can't do all of it. Let's go over here, and then we will also add in personality. Personality effects. And then the collector effect did pick something up, so let's use it. C time ruled out, completion ruled out, is a collector. We hypothesize the collector effects will disappear once I add social controls, but we haven't done that yet. All right, so let's add social controls. Well, first of all, let's figure out which of these variables we can use concurrently. Okay, so no observations. So let's not ask about Christianity. Let's look at the source, right? Wrangled output, wrangled output, wrangled output, specifically for the COVID administrations that include personality questions as well. Okay, so all right, let's just go ahead and add it all in there. Is industry regulation, I think religiosities. Yeah, it's not in there. Still got no observations. Is it true that I don't have? Is it true that I don't have nationalism in there? Column transforms. Was awarded from a U.S. institution is the matcher. So let's search for that. Okay, so we don't have nationalism represented here. STEM is not here, I believe. Don't have STEM. I do have the AI thing. I think I got this. Yeah. Very cool. So, what we really have is regulation and AI. So if you score high on favoring regulation, we put you on the political left. If you score low, we put you on the political right. If you favor AI, then we say that you are not conservative. It's not really clear how fair that is to say. Well, we can draw on the past research. So the past research is going to have to, we're going to have to use that for our argument. And we can replicate it here too. Not using personality multiple regression, but replicating that AI is lower among those. Yeah, let's try and replicate this. This will go in the basic exploration actually. Is AI favorability lower among it's like negatively interacted. Lower among low regulation supporters. E.g. lower among low regulation supporters than high among high. So it would be a positive interaction. Or, no, it's lower among low regulation supporters. It's just a positive correlation. It's not a positive interaction. You can have a positive interaction, but it's not the same question. Okay, so the way that we test that is regulation. Bam! Regulation is not found. Oh, golly. Okay, so there is regulation. I can just do MVOI. So regulation 1. And what are we going to regress on this is AI. How does that cord keep getting stuck like that? Okay. And that's a sum. Okay, so there's a positive correlation. It's wicked significant, and it explains more than our whole personality thing, frankly. So if you are in favor of AI, you're also in favor. Ouch! I popped a blister on my hand earlier. You're in favor of AI. You're also in favor of regulation, and this feels super weird. This feels super weird because being in favor of AI should be like a free market thing. Is that what we're saying? No. Being in favor of AI, being opposed. Yeah, this is the tension. Being in favor of AI should kind of be like a free market thing, but then there's also the possibility that like fear of change and anti-innovation is a more conservative thing, and that's where like the personality question comes in. Is that just a matter of personality? Because logically, from like a conservative, first principles conservative viewpoint, conservatives should be pro-innovation. Right, still no questions? Okay. Yeah, okay, so this is highly significant and positive relation found, but total R square is low. Okay, and this is to reiterate the problem. Intellectual conservatives should embrace technological advancement and the free market. But as a matter of personality for Kahneman's System 1 response, conservatives may exhibit anti-innovation bias. Is AI favorability lower among AI favorability is lower among low regulation supporters? This is counterintuitive. This is counterintuitive because conservatives, intellectual. This is counter to reiterate the problem. This is counterintuitive because intellectual conservatives should embrace technological advancement and the free market. potential solution as a matter of personality. Okay. And let's make an interaction variable. Regulation by AI equals let's generate this guy, boom. And then we will regress VOI, regulation X, MVY F, MVY F, regulation 1. Interaction variable is negative. So what this says is if you increase regulation, support for regulation and support for AI, currently you will decrease variable of interest. If you increase, but it's pretty low significance. If you increase them both, yeah, this is really logically similar to a marginal effect on those guys. So I need to include their margins to extract that effect. Okay, now it's more significant and it has a higher coefficient, but it's still negative. It's kind of a robustness check. Okay. So if you concurrently increase them, holding constant their own marginal effects. So this is like a pure interaction. So if you concurrently increase them, then you will reduce variable of interest. So you're saying, I like more regulation and more AI. I like more regulation and more AI. Who is this kind of person? This would be like a techno-liberal. This would be like a techno-liberal. So raising more regulation and AI, the techno-liberal, and reducing the both would be the bad conservative, the conservative who's opposed to technology. So reducing them both concurrently, I want less regulation and less AI. So raising more regulation and more AI is associated with a reduction in techno-liberal or scientistic progressive. Is associated with a reduction in alt-ed credential support. Reducing AI and reducing regulation, e.g. this is an anti-innovation. This is an anti-innovation conservative. Reducing AI and reducing regulation is associated with more support for alt-ed credential. And this is the contradiction, because it's an anti-innovation conservative, Anti-innovation conservative is associated with more support for alt-ed credential. Actually, it's not really a problem. It's just showing that one effect dominates the other. Anti-innovation conservative is associated with more support for alt-ed credential. Indicates free market. Indicates ideological dominance. At survey time. But both of these effects are weak. Okay, reducing AI and reducing regulation is associated with more support for alternative education credential. Indicates ideological dominance over personality at survey time. And that's consistent. Yeah, okay. Let me kind of put that in results. This is ideological dominance over personality is consistent with more direct results from current survey. But then we're still kind of left with the problem of why do some ideological dominance over personality is consistent with results in this paper. Weak personality effects relative to ideology. 2 to 1. 2 to 1 without statistical regression. Okay. What was the problem originally? Status quo bias is paradoxical in this situation. Respondent favorability to government regulation moves positively with innovation. And it's the religiosity that was the big key that I don't have in my current administration. Respondent favorability to government regulation moves positive with innovation. So we just replicated that. Respondent favorability to government regulation moves positively with innovation. We just replicated that, and it's kind of weird. So we replicated that correlation exists, and then we extracted that interaction to its own variable, and we found that interaction variable is related to favorability, although weakly, and that the techno-liberal is disfavorable, which indicates that the techno-liberal is disfavorable, which indicates that their preference for regulation dominates. The preference for regulation dominates the preference for innovation, at least in this case, alternative education. And the status quo conservative, or anti-innovation conservative, was more favorable to alternative education, which means that the conservativeness is dominating the anti-innovation-ness. The anti-innovation-ness, at least in this case. While religiosity is associated with reduced innovation favorability. respondent favorability to government regulation moves positively with innovation. That's the problem, but we still need to crystallize that problem a bit more. Why is it such a problem? Status quo bias is a common theme, but it's paradoxical in this situation. So what we're saying is that, yes, so here we're using religiosity as the conservative proxy. Okay, so this could be a solution. That the so-called paradox had to do specifically with high religiosity. But that's really social conservatism, which is distinct from free market principles. So it's less of a contradiction if those decouple. So status quo bias among conservatives is a common theme in the literature, but it is paradoxical in this situation. Markets facilitate innovation, right? So the paradox arises from our concept of conservative, which is mixing two very different subtypes. Among conservatives in general, there isn't opposition where conservatives. So I uncovered that there isn't opposition. There isn't opposition for the low regulation, low AI. Low regulation, low AI. So the low AI would be a status quo bias without religiosity. Low AI would be a status quo bias without religiosity. Independent of. So really, you kind of want a multiple regression to capture those effects at the same time, but I think we have a decent logical structural argument here. We'll see how the math pans out. So the structural argument, let's see if I have any questions or anything. Nope. Okay, so these survey respondents may be thinking fast. Well, what we've uncovered so far is no, they're not thinking fast. Their intellectual side is actually dominating. And the religiosity thing seems to be a completely different concern. And it's only mixed in due to the concept of conservatism. All right, let's go add in those sociological controls and see if anything changes. did I jot down this? So I want to add in this ideological variable here. Regulation X. It sounds super cool. Regulation AI. Hmm, 1458. 1457. It doesn't change it at all. In fact, I think it really reduced the AR squared. 759. 759, yeah. All right, let's take it out. Is logically interesting, empirically reduces AR2, so super unimportant. Cool. That was an interesting tangent. And it reminded us, and it reminded us of our overall problem, so it was worth it. Okay, so now we are back here, and we are trying to decide what is, we're trying to decide what variables are available for multiple regression. And this was pretty much it, right? So the interaction is going to prove to be unimportant, but we can test it anyway. In view regulation X. I mean, it's more important than regulation marginal effects, and we think those are important. All right, we'll keep it for now, at least in the initial regression. So OLS, bam. So these are the ideological variables we have. The only kind of key one that's missing is religiosity, and that's arguably okay, arguably a weakness, but arguably okay. So we basically have the two out of the three big effects that we care about. Now I need personality stuff. Personality, oh crap, didn't mean to click that. Go away transforms. Personality. We said that time doesn't matter, but the collector does. I think that's what we said. Overall time effects are not interesting, potentially due to sample variation constraint. Completion time was hypothesized in intelligence proxy. In fact, may exist, but it's super negligible with respect to approval. In other words, we don't include it. Okay, so we don't include time or completion, but I think collector effects. There was only one collector variation, but it had something in the 0.1 to 0.3 range. So we'll keep it and see if we can see if it matters. But we do think it will go away once we add the social controls. So our social controls are age, income, age. Okay, so here's age, income, age, continuous. I think that's continuous reported exact age. Okay. There's a bunch of these stupid proxies. Income and survey monkey. We're actually going to have to leave the survey monkey variables out because now we're using mechanical Turk. I am going to stop the stream because I got to use the bathroom. See ya!